The most terrifying story of one of my experiences. Y'all, I live in Canada, and this story had me not wanting to go outside. Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepypasta, series where I crochet something creepy and talk about something even creepier. Let's get into it. This story may be short, or it may be drawn out. I'm recounting these events as I type, as it was honestly one of the most horrifying things I have experienced, and it brings me genuine stress to think about. This happened maybe 2 to 3 years ago. I live in southern West Virginia and have for my entire life. The woods and mountains surround every direction you look, and nighttime is a darkness that you can never dream of unless experienced. I was with a friend, I'll call him Mark. Mark was at my house one evening doing the usual things, watching UFC, playing Xbox, etc. It was extremely late when we finally got bored and decided to go for a walk on a nearby trail to smoke a joint. This is not a particularly long trail, but it is very dense in the woods that surround it, and it is easy to get freaked out when thinking of your surroundings. We finally get to about halfway into the trail, about 30 minutes in, where we stop, pack our joint, and stand on the trail to chill and talk. The forest is very alive tonight. There are always noises in the woods, but the amount of animal activity for the time was unsettling. At this point, it was probably past 1 a.m. This was strange and kind of eerie, but not alerting, as any sort of predatory animal in the area may cause a disturbance. We finish smoking and continue our walk when almost immediately the forest falls dead quiet. If we know anything about Appalachia, we know that that is not a good sign. If you know anything about being in the woods, you know that's not a good sign. And as soon as the forest goes quiet, there is a voice. It almost sounds like a mocking humanoid voice, shaky and uncertain. Almost like an old children's toy, like the ones with the crackly speakers and robotic voice, if you know what I mean. This immediately set us off. We bolt directly down the opposite length of the trail, but the sound does not gain distance. It doesn't get closer per se, but no matter how far we ran down the trail, this eerie voice remains the same volume, going over and over with no quieting or stopping. At this point, I'm convinced that we are in genuine danger, something I have felt very few times. Finally, after sprinting for who knows how long, we exit the trail, gasping for breath and almost at the verge of tears of how frightening this was. We begin to exit the trail, and about 5 minutes from the exit, there's a bone-shaking, heart-stopping, murderous scream from directly behind us. You know what a mountain lion sounds like? This was not an animal. This was not someone playing or watching a movie. This scream sent birds flying from nests and made my heart drop into my stomach. It was the most genuinely depraved and violent scream that I have ever heard. This is a true story that I've only told to maybe 3 people, all of whom seem to brush it off as false. I've never been a person to push for the existence of the paranormal or spiritual, but I genuinely believe I encountered something inhuman in those woods. After running from the scream at the end of the trail, we ran to the car, which was only about 5 more minutes from the trail, so we got there relatively fast from sprinting. I just what would you even do in that situation? Also, Bigfoot, is that you? Anyways, y'all. Ta-da! The patterns for these bats are available on my Etsy. Let me know what you think of this story and what you think might have happened. Also, if you've had an experience similar to this, leave it in the comments down below. Let me know if you want more scary Appalachia stories, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.
So we talk a lot about what's lurking in the dark out there. Creatures, entities, things we can't explain. But I think people forget humans could be just as terrifying. Maybe even more so. Because at least with the paranormal, you can question if it's real. And we all know that Appalachia has no shortage of either. I came across this story recently out of the Appalachia, South Carolina, Tennessee border. It is one of the most unsettling things I've come across in a while. This man, we're going to call him Ray, went with his son's friend Cameron to go check out a pull-behind camper that was for sale. Cameron's dad wasn't able to make it, so Ray offered to tag along and help him inspect it. So this place was a few hours away. So the plan was to go check it out and be back by dinner time. That was the plan anyway. So they get to the area and they follow the GPS down a windy gravel road that dipped deep into the holler. Ray said that the transition was immediate. The normal world sort of vanished. There was all this rusted machinery and collapsed trailer. The landscape just had this vibe like it was forgotten by everybody outside the holler. He described it as DRUG city vibe. He said it was the kind of place that feels like there are eyes on you behind like every boarded up window, even before you see any people. Ugh. So they pulled up to the address and they knocked on the door. And at first they're just standing there and there is silence. Nobody is coming to the door. So naturally, they turned to leave. Cameron put the key in the ignition and he turned it and there was a hollow click. The engine would not start. So they tried a few more times and nothing. So Ray pulls out his cell phone, and of course there's absolutely no cell phone signal, 0 bars. And that's when they felt the prickle on the backs of their necks. So they're looking around and they look down towards the woods where there were some trailers, and people started like emerging from the shadows. They were all just standing there staring at them, unblinking, some leaning against porch railings with shot GUNS in their hands. Silhouettes were shifting within the darkened windows of these trailers too. It was like they were watching their every move, waiting for some kind of a signal. And then the front door of the main house creaked open. So a woman steps out, and he says that she was barely dressed and her skin was really pale and she looked really sickly. She had sunken, wide eyes. It looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. At first, she didn't ask why they were there. She didn't even introduce herself. She just stared at them with this jagged, unsettling smile. Ray even said immediately he noticed something was really off about the way she was standing. It was like her torso was contorted in an angle that would have been painful. And then she said with a raspy voice, "The camper paperwork's inside. But you boys look thirsty. Come in. I got some water. Come in and let's talk." But Ray said no thank you, and that he was going to stay outside and try to get the car working. He said her smile didn't change, but her eyes did. She said, "It's much cooler inside. Come in. Just come in for a minute." And they said that every time they refused, she would get more erratic. She started pacing the porch and her voice got louder. "Why won't you come in? I'm being neighborly. Just get in this house." And the more they held their ground, the more her face shifted, her calm mask dissolving into pure rage. So then a man walks out and he looks at them, says, "I'm a mechanic." Didn't say anything else, and then looks at her, kind of like side-eyeing her. Ray said that the look between them said everything. This felt coordinated. So the man just walks over swiftly to the car, and he just starts digging into it and ripping into it, ripping out wires and clunking things around, just completely erratic behavior. He was absolutely not fixing anything. He was disconnecting things and breaking things. So after like 10 minutes of ripping things out under the hood, he just stops, says, "I'll be right back," and walks towards the trailer. So he never comes back. And eventually, a teenager comes out, walks up to them and says he was on a weekend-long bender. He has passed out and there is no waking him up. Honestly, maybe a blessing in disguise. So the sun is dropping down below the ridge. The shadows are bleeding through. It is getting late and they are beginning to internally panic. The air is turning freezing and there were more GUNs visible now from all the people around their trailers. And then Ray just finally, his patience snaps and he yells, "Somebody let me use the phone or I'm walking out of here and calling the law." Okay, so the people that are watching from a distance step forward now with GUNs in hand. But then an older man appeared from the crowd and he offered to walk them over to his trailer to use his phone. Ray said that the smell hit him like a physical blow when the door opened. It smelled like rotting trash and dead animals, and he could see cockroaches literally blanketing the walls. They were scurrying around in the dim light of the flickering bulb. And then they waited and waited until about 11 p.m. when Cameron's dad finally got there and towed them out. As they pulled away, Ray looked back at the main trailer and he saw that woman just standing on the porch watching them leave in the darkness. And on their way back, Ray said that it hit him. That online post of that trailer probably never even existed. It was just bait to get someone down into the holler with a working car, zero cell phone service, and nowhere to go. They got out, but I can't stop thinking about maybe who didn't, who answered that ad before or even after them. Also, what were their plans? That one was so freaking creepy. All right, guys, you know what to do. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you have your own creepy story, please share it with me. And if you're new here, don't forget to follow for more creepy story time.
Tonight, you're going to hear a terrifying story, but it's not going to come from me. It's going to come from my Appalachian grandmother. She lives more than 12 hours away from me, but came to visit.
Well, I want to tell you about a bad experience I had when I was growing up. And we used to go walking of a night and not think anything about it. I lived in Ohio. And so my cousin and myself and another girl, we were all walking. This soldier boy came out and he asked us, he said, "I want to know directions." And he kept walking down towards you. There was a street light, but he kept on edging off to the side where it was shadow. And so I got a little bit suspicious. I got scared. And this friend of mine, she wanted to borrow my shoes. I had some hard sole shoes on. And we swapped shoes, and she had those on. Well, when he grabbed her and he was dragging her, and we ran as hard as we could run. And
He still had your friend?
he had our friend, and she had those shoes on, and she kicked his shin. When she did that, he turned her loose, and she ran. And we ran till we got home.
All right, what year was that? Do you remember roughly what year?
Probably in the 50s.
50s, but how old were you?
Oh, I was probably around 11 or 12.
God, were all of your friends about the same age?
Mm-hmm.
God, and she was able to kick them hard enough to get them to let go.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you guys going to run?
And the next morning, it was in the news that this soldier boy had killed this girl.
Oh.
And so evidently he got someone else. And we were just lucky.
Oh, that gave me that really gave me chills all over.
We were lucky.
Yeah, so am I. 'Cause
So,
if he'd have got you, I wouldn't be here. Let me know if you all want to hear more from my Appalachian mother and my grandmother and my brother that actually still live there. While they're here visiting, I can actually do a whole deep dive with them of all the scary, creepy stuff they saw out there.
This is the first time that I've received a story coming from Appalachia, and it's horrifying. I've only told this story to my close friends, and I've never dared to post it on the internet because I know how people online can be. But honestly, if somebody else told me this story, I'd probably try to rationalize it too. But this happened to me last year, and it still freaks me out to think about. I live in a small town in the Appalachian Mountains, and there's a trail behind my neighborhood that leads pretty far back into the woods. It's not an isolated horror movie type place either. People hike there all the time during the day. I've walked it since middle school. At the time that this happened, I was going through a really rough patch mentally. I had just gotten out of a long relationship, and there was a bunch of family stuff happening at home too. One night, I remember sitting in my room crying harder than I had in years. Not trying to be dramatic, just genuinely overwhelmed. It was late and everybody else in the house was asleep, so I was trying to stay quiet. The only weird thing that happened that night was with my dog. He kept staring toward my bedroom window and whining. At one point, I actually checked outside because he was acting so strange, but I didn't see anything. The next evening, I decided to go for a walk because I'd been stuck in the house for days and I needed to clear my head. It was already getting close to dark, but I wasn't really thinking about it. I was maybe 20 minutes into my walk when I heard somebody crying somewhere off in the woods. At first, I honestly thought it was another hiker or maybe somebody got hurt. The crying sounded far away, but clear enough that I could hear it between everything else. Then I noticed it sounded weirdly familiar. I know this part sounds stupid, but it sounded almost identical to the way that I had been crying the night before. It was the same uneven breathing and everything. I kind of just stood there listening because my brain was trying to make sense of it. The second I stopped walking, the crying stopped too. That was the moment that I got uncomfortable. A few seconds later, I heard movement off to my left in the trees. I remember calling out something like, "Hello?" thinking maybe somebody was actually there, but there was no answer. Then I heard what sounded like somebody trying to stifle laughter. At that point, I started walking back the direction I came from because the whole thing suddenly felt wrong. The footsteps started moving too, staying somewhere in the woods beside me. I still couldn't actually see anyone, which honestly made it worse. Then I heard the crying again, except it was closer this time, and mixed into it was the sound of laughter. I know people are gonna say it was probably an animal, but I've lived around these woods my entire life. I know what coyotes sound like. I know that foxes make weird screaming noises. This didn't sound like either of those. It sounded human enough to make my skin crawl. I started walking faster, and whatever was out there started moving faster too. Every time I sped up, I'd hear movement keeping pace with me through the trees. Then I heard what sounded like my own voice say, okay. That's what scared me more than anything. It wasn't aggressive or screaming or anything dramatic, it sounded normal. I immediately started running after that. And this is the part that I still can't fully explain. The farther I ran, the closer the sounds felt. I could hear footsteps moving through the woods beside me, and the laughing got louder and more erratic. At one point, it genuinely sounded like multiple people laughing at once. I glanced toward the trees one time and saw something moving low to the ground between them, but it disappeared too fast for me to really make out what it was. It could have been an animal. It could have been my eyes playing tricks on me because I was panicking. I honestly don't know. I just know I ran the entire way back home. When I got inside, my dog immediately started barking toward the backyard, which he almost never does. I shut all the blinds and tried convincing myself I'd worked myself into a panic over normal sounds in the woods. But later that night, while I was laying in bed, I heard what sounded like somebody crying outside for maybe 5 seconds before it suddenly turned into laughing. I didn't look outside. Maybe there's a logical explanation for all of this. Maybe somebody was messing with me somehow. Even now, I refuse to walk that trail once it starts getting dark.
There's only one thing scarier of thinking you're hearing your dead dad's voice in a mimic, and that's other people confirming that you did. If you missed my live stream last night, don't worry, I'm about to tell you everything that happened. If you're new here, my name is Sparrow, and I tell a lot of spooky and crazy stories for my content, and every night at 9 p.m. we do live streams where we go spook walking in the Appalachian Mountains. And the crazy thing is last night we experienced a lot of that, and in the end of the night, we experienced my dead dad's voice calling my name. That was the first time I ever had to end a live stream like that because I was crying, literally bawling my eyes out. I had over 3,000 people that either confirmed it for me or genuinely felt bad for me because I was bawling my eyes out on camera. Crazy thing is the first time I heard it, it sounded just like my dad. Just like my dad calling my name. And then the second time I heard it, I literally thought, I was like, okay, maybe I'm just hearing things. And the scary part is the third time I heard it, he sounded angry. Like he was frustrated with me that I wasn't listening to him. Dad died 2 years ago and his death date is actually coming up very soon. And I genuinely thought that maybe he was reaching down to me from heaven because I'm doing exactly what he would want me to do with my life. But everybody in the chat said, Sparrow, go home. It's time to leave. That is a mimic. One thing to spook yourself out and you think you hear stuff, right? I know your brain can play tricks on you, but when the chat starts confirming that they've heard it too, man, I'm most likely going to end up posting that clip of my live so people can see. But if you're new here, join me on my daytime live stream so we can have fun where we have fun and recovery. But give me a follow so at night you can come spook walking with us in the Appalachian Mountains and you can see some crazy stuff and hear some crazy stuff. Follow for more.
Welcome back to another episode of Tea After Midnight. Just a little series where we have some tea to keep it nice and classy, but I also tell you scary stories. And tonight's story comes with a picture that has me absolutely unsettled. So grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from Kay. Hi Savannah, I hope this email finds you well. I really enjoy your videos and I wanted to share something that happened to me last year. I've never been someone who fears or even believes in paranormal experiences. That only started to change when my mom began taking courses to become a shaman. She has always claimed to sense or see things, but I never believed her. I assumed it was just her mind playing tricks. That is until things started happening in our home. At first it was only my mom experiencing these things. One night while she was home alone, she said she heard loud footsteps moving back and forth between our bedrooms from downstairs, which are right next to each other. It frightened her so much that she ended up sleeping on the sofa downstairs. Another time she was standing in the hallway near the front door, facing a mirror. The downstairs bathroom was behind her. In the mirror, she noticed something in her peripheral vision. Something she described as human, but distorted, almost like it had a strange filter over it. When she focused on it, a painting I had made, one that had been hanging in the same spot for months, suddenly fell. Because of where it landed, it blocked the bathroom door completely. At the time, I brushed it off as a coincidence, assuming she was overthinking things because of her course. But then things started happening to me. It only ever occurred at night, after I had fallen asleep. I would wake up suddenly in a panic with thoughts that didn't feel like my own, almost as if someone was speaking directly into my mind. The thoughts were extremely vivid and specific. For example, I would wake up thinking, there is something sitting under your desk. It has long limbs and a long neck. It's smiling and it wants you to be afraid. Do not let it know you're awake. I would lie there completely frozen, pretending to be asleep, absolutely convinced that something was in my room. These episodes happened every single night. On top of that, the room would feel like it was spinning, similar to the sensation of lying down while extremely drunk. This took a serious toll on me, both mentally and physically. I struggled in college because I was barely sleeping. There were times I went 2 or 3 days without sleep, not because I wasn't tired, but because I was too afraid to fall asleep. The final incident was the most intense. One night at around 3:20 a.m., I had been downstairs in the living room binge watching The Office. I went upstairs to grab my phone charger, and to get upstairs you have to pass through our long kitchen. At the far end there's a couch. In the middle is the entrance to the living room where I was, and at the other far end, the hallway door, which was where I needed to go. After getting my charger, I walked back down into the kitchen. The kitchen lights were off, and when I look down the far end, I suddenly see a figure standing upright on the couch at the far end. It was too dark to make out any features, but I was certain in the moment it was a person. We stood there for what felt like a full minute, just staring at each other, until it leaped off the couch and sprinted toward me. I ran as fast as I could back into the living room, barely managing to slam the door shut. I called my mom in a panic and crying, convinced there was someone in the house trying to attack me. While on the phone, I turned on the living room light so I could see into the kitchen. I grabbed one of the fireplace tools for protection and slowly went back to turn on the kitchen lights. There was nothing there. I searched the entire house, but still, no one was there. I checked every door and they were all locked. There was no way somebody got into the house. Plus, I live in a very small village in the middle of nowhere. At the time, I didn't even think of this as paranormal because of how real and vivid it felt. I later drew what I had been seeing and showed it to a woman my mom brought in to cleanse the house. Forewarning, I'm inserting the picture now. When she saw the drawing, she said it looked exactly like what she had sensed was inside the house after walking through the house. She even got chills at how accurately I had drawn it. After she cleansed the house, everything stopped. None of us have experienced anything like it since. So there are definitely a few things that I want to touch on this story. The first one's going to be when you would go to sleep, and every single night this happened, you would go to sleep but you would wake up in a panic, feeling like somebody had spoke something to you and you woke up and it was extremely vivid and specific. Like you said, for example, you would wake up thinking there is something sitting under your desk. It had long limbs and a long neck. It's smiling and it wants you to be afraid. Do not let it know you're awake. I have chills just reading that, because what do you mean that you would wake up and you would think something that specific, that something with a long neck, long limbs is under your desk, it's smiling at you, I've got chills again, and it wants you to be afraid, so don't let it know that you're awake. That absolutely sends chills down my spine. My whole body is in full chills right now. But this didn't just happen one night. This kept repeatedly happening. And I'm so sorry you went through that, because I don't even know what I would do the first time that would happen. I wouldn't know what to do. But to feel that way, I can just imagine the pure terror that you felt every night that you woke up. But next, let's talk about this picture right here. This picture is pure evil. Looking at this, it has me so unsettled right now. I don't even know what this is. If anybody in the comments knows, please let us know. But this just looks like pure, absolute evil. And I absolutely could not imagine being in your position, seeing this thing, not only just seeing it, but it then running at you. But looking at this, it just absolutely sends shivers down my spine and it freaks me out. And I'm so sorry that you saw that. But I really hope that you're not seeing it now. From the story, it sounded like after the house was cleansed that you haven't had any more experiences. So I pray that stays the same way. I do want to say thank you so much for sending in your story, but again, I am so sorry that you went through that. And if anybody in the comments has any idea of what this thing in the picture is, please let us know. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them. You can email me at the email on the screen or the email in the caption of this video. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have the best night. I love you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
I'm steady trying to record this video, so hopefully it doesn't freeze again this time. But on my last post, it was from, on this day last year, and I was talking about how when I moved to this house, I can see spirits. I'm a seer. I can pick up energies, etc. So I knew it was something in this house, and I even dreamed about it, but that's another story. But anyway, last year on this day, my neighbor was telling me that they thought this house was haunted because all the people who moved in moved away really fast. So they was like, nobody would stay here, so they knew something was up because they've been living, next door for years and years. Okay, so every time I try to show y'all this, the video freezes. But now, let me show you so I just rewatched my own video, and then something told me to go look at the Google Street View, right? So that's what I did, and I looked at the Google Street View of my house plenty of times, but something told me, like, no, really look at it, right? So I started zooming in, and, let me show you what I see. Now, mind you, this is from 2023. I moved here in 2024. Okay, so let me move me out the way. Now, I'm going to try to point to it. You see that face right there in the window? Look closely. I don't know how to make the picture zoom in, but that's a face right there, right? Now you could say, oh, that's just a shadow, that's a reflection, it's, whatever. But clearly, right, the sun is shining full blast. So if there was a shadow, you would see the shadow on the house. You don't see any shadow on the house because there's no tree, there's nothing in front of the house, right? You can see whatever those people have, they have some stuff in the house, whatever. But don't you see that face? It's clear, it's twisted, and it's transparent. Now, some people don't believe in this type of thing, to each his own. But you can see that, right? Now, what I want to add to that is, I'm not scared of this type of thing because I've been seeing this all my life. I'm a seer. I've been seeing spirits, what you name it. I can give y'all tons of stories. But with this type of thing, if you run into these type of issues, right? So when I moved into this house, I was guided to this house. I didn't want to move to this city, but it's like you have to go with things, right? I was approved for something in this city, and it happened to be this house, so I came and checked it out. I liked it, but I felt right away, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't feel like it was something wrong. It just felt like it's an old house, so it had that old feel to it. But when I was at home at my old house before I moved in here, like I knew I was moving here, but I hadn't physically moved in. I had a dream, and I seen like downstairs in the living room, and I saw like a man. I saw a man. I didn't see his face, but I saw a man, and I heard always watching. So I'm like, oh, there's some shit up in this house. Let me go, So I end up coming back to the house, and I saged it, and cleansed it. And then that's when I cleansed the house, the whole house, top to bottom, open the windows, doors, and with sage. And then I went downstairs. I heard footsteps upstairs, So, I do want to say, like, if you're afraid of this type of thing, excuse me. Oh, that must be a confirmation word. But if you are afraid of these type of things, right? If spirits and negative energies and stuff, they feed off of your fear. So if you're afraid, they know that you're afraid. Just like a dog, if an animal is know you scared, it's gonna turn up on you. So the same thing with spirits. If it knows that you scared, you don't have no authority, you're not sure of yourself, it's gonna torture you, torment you, scare you. This is their house. If you are afraid, that's their house. But if you're not afraid, right, you stand in your authority, you stand in your power, you realize that nothing can harm you. Okay, nothing Nothing can harm you. None of these type of things can harm you. You have to stand in your power. You have to know who you are. And you have to, you have to stand your ground with this type of stuff. It will leave. So it could go one of two ways. You can move into a house that has a spirit and it can remain their house, or you can move into a house that has a spirit and make it your house, and they gotta go. They don't have any authority over you. It's all a mind thing. You have to not be afraid. I know this sounds crazy, but obviously it's real. You can see that. I don't talk about a lot about this because I know a lot of people are naysayers that, they think you weird, they think you crazy, they don't believe you, they, etc. So I keep stuff to myself, but I've got a lot of stories, really, honestly.
If you're scared of the Hat Man, a skinwalker, or a werewolf, you're afraid of the wrong thing. You should be scared of a Windigo. Lip oil on so I can run this mouth. Now focus. Scary story time, Fright Night Files. So I've been researching Wendigos for my next podcast episode, and when I tell you there's things about it that I had never heard before, and I'm like, wait a minute, why aren't people talking about this? Because this mofo is terrifying. So the indigenous nations of the Ojibwe and Algonquin people have been talking about this thing forever. They live in the northern forest of Minnesota, Canada, and the Great Lakes, and they've been up there like seeing this thing, interacting with this thing since the beginning of time. It's described in a lot of different ways, but the main thing that everyone references is its teeth. And not in the way that you're thinking, because it doesn't just have big teeth or razor sharp teeth. It's only teeth. It only has teeth. It has no lips because you know why? It ate them. It ate its lips. Why would it do that? Because its hunger is so infinite and insatiable. The more it gets, the more it wants, the more it wants, the more it gets. It's just like this endless cycle. It's like face is just this massive maw of jagged yellow teeth coming for you. And get this, the more it eats, the bigger it gets. The bigger it gets, the more it wants to eat. This thing just keeps growing and getting more massive and intimidating and scary just by the minute. But why is it even a thing? How did it become a thing in the first place? Good question. I'm going to tell ya. So it all started from cannibalism and famine. So when people were starving and they had no other form of feeding themselves, and a lot of them apparently, allegedly, resorted to cannibalism, just like people, not specific types of people, just if anyone did this, then you become this Wendigo. And people are going to be like, quit saying its name. I'm not going to do anything that's going to make it show up. I'm not going to be like a cannibal or be out in the woods in the dark. Duh, I'm not dumb. Anyway, it has antlers and this big hunchback. Way scarier than the photos of the alleged skinwalker. Another thing I'm going to do to make sure that me and a Wendigo don't cross paths, I'm going to do this episode, tell you all about it, and then I'm going to shut the hell up about them because there's this thing called Wendigo psychosis. It's where someone becomes so obsessed with Wendigos that they start wanting to do the things that Wendigos do. And there's people that's been put in medical places, mental places, because they wouldn't stop begging to turn into one of them. There's historical accounts of people begging to be restrained so that they don't turn into a Wendigo. These people that have Wendigo psychosis, they feel like something is forcing them, forcing the urge. Historical accounts describe people begging to be restrained because they were afraid of what they might do. Ugh. I mean, that's not folklore anymore. That's documented behavior. And not only does it grow bigger, taller as it eats, it shrinks in size, the more it consumes. Like the other cryptids, it can sound like people you know. So if you ever hear anyone calling your name in the woods, it could be Skinwalker, Wendigo, werewolf, boogeyman, I don't know. Just never answer your name when it's called in the woods. And it wasn't just created. They all started as people. Some say that this thing enters your body and twists your thoughts until you become something other than yourself. See, this thing is scary. Why aren't more people talking about it? Well, I mean, I guess I can see why. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be talking about it. You're probably really scared right now, and I don't blame you. You should be, because this thing is like unhinged and very terrifying. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. This thing can be like, and it's brutal, and I will tell you how to do it. But I'm only going to tell you in my podcast episode. So if you want to know, you have to go listen there. It's worth it. I promise you'll love it.
It didn't matter that they'd lost the war. He was looking for a war that he thought he still had a chance of winning. Now, this story is a good case in point of ghosts aren't the only things that haunt us. Sometimes it's history that haunts us. Now, this true story was sent in by Victoria, and this happened just outside the Chickamauga National Battlefield in Chickamauga, Georgia, the site of the second most major battle of the Civil War. Now, she moved into an apartment on the outskirts of the battlefield, and one night she was right in that stage in between, just about to drift off to sleep. And she heard the unmistakable sound of heavy boot prints going up the staircase, or actually down the staircase in this case. And the next thing she knows, she hears this god-awful commotion in her kitchen. It sounds like every pot and pan she owns is being like aggressively rummaged through. So, of course, she's fully awake by now, and then she sees a soldier dressed all in gray with a slouch cap on. It was a Confederate soldier. There was no doubt in her mind. And it was just as solid as you and I. It was not transparent or anything. And in an instant, it just disappeared. It vanished right in front of her eyes.
So listen to me.
Now, she goes running down her stairs and makes it to the living room. And before she even has a chance to collect herself, to collect her thoughts, here comes her neighbor pounding at the door. And it says she is pale as a sheet, and she's also shaking. And she said that she was woke up by the sound of all the commotion in her kitchen, but then she woke up to see a soldier walking through, the same Confederate soldier walking through her bedroom, walked through the closet door, and disappeared. Now, this was a one-off. She had lived in this place for a minute, and this didn't happen before or it didn't happen since. So she got to wondering herself, why? Why would this happen? And it occurred to her, that she was dating a Latino gentleman, and that her neighbor was dating a black gentleman, and she really thinks that this was not a residual haunting, that this soldier was on a mission. He was on a mission to show his disapproval of, his lost cause, his disapproval of their taste in dating. And I agree. I tend to agree here that there's really no other explanation for it. If this had been a residual haunting, it would have happened more than once. But I really think that this guy just manifested to show his disapproval, and it was really just an ugly example of how that hatred, that prejudice is also another thing that haunts us. Not just ghosts, but the unpleasant history that we'd like to forget. Sometimes it rears its ugly head. So that's been Jay's Haunted Appalachia. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Thank you, Victoria, for submitting your story. Keep sending me your suggestions and stories, guys, and keep Appalachia haunted, y'all.
I thought my new boyfriend was a great catch until I met his parents. He asked, "How can you eat that when you can have this?" gesturing to his ribeye, and I just chuckled over my salad. So I said, "Simple, being vegan makes me better than you." And he left too. It was my third date with Jeff, and we were starting to get comfortable. So as he flagged down the waiter for the check, I started taking my wallet out of my purse, and he said, "You know me, ladies don't pay."
I went, how chivalrous. Mama must be proud. But then he replied, actually, I was wondering if you'd like to meet her. Dinner at my house next Saturday? So later that night, I had weighed my options in the shower. You know, Jeff was a great guy. He was handsome, generous, friendly, but I had a secret that I wasn't quite ready to share. All of my life, I would see flashes, like visions, at every meal. I could feel what the food felt. So early on in life, I realized that the taste of gentle rains and summer breezes was much preferable to the taste of farm factory despair. You know, chickens grown so fast that their legs snap, and cattle flailing in their blood on killing floors. Yeah, no, I felt it all. But when I remembered the deep blue of Jeff's eyes and the way my waist bent like a willow into his arms, I knew my decision was final. So as Jeff made dinner, I made awkward small talk with his parents. How can you eat only plants? Asked his father, who was a 65 wiry old man named Clyde, who still had arms knotted in muscle. So I just replied, I don't like cruelty. And he said, there's nothing cruel about where my boy gets his meat. He's a hunter like his daddy. So I was very grateful when Jeff interrupted the interrogationist at the table. Tonight's fare was a plate of sausage onions, and he prepared a salad for me. And dinner was going well, honestly, until Clyde spoke up. Aren't you even gonna try it? Even his mother chimed in and said, it is good. And Jeff was like, Mom, Dad, don't force her. But I said, no, it's all right. You know, I don't want to make a bad first impression, so one little moment of discomfort would be a small price to pay. And I took a bite and gagged. I was running, being chased through endless trees, but not on 4 legs. I felt a pair of rough hands pin me to the forest floor, and my vision went red, seeing 3 merciless faces looming above me. Before I could even speak, I felt Jeff's hand grab my hair and start dragging me towards the basement, while his mother just cleared the table and his father smiling ear to ear. I'd asked, she as fresh as you said? And Jeff smiled while he forced a gag into my mouth. Practically grass-fed.
A woman was playing a simple hand-clapping game with her daughter, but it quickly turned into a chilling paranormal encounter when the child pointed at the empty face behind her and whispered, Mom, that is your son. Known as one of the most heartbreak videos online, this footage captures the exact moment the boundary between life and death blurs. Just 5 months ago, this family lost their little boy. When the young girl started talking thin air, the mother's first instinct wasn't run away, but cautiously make sure the spirit stayed. After getting a firm nod from her daughter, something unbelievable happened. Desperate to feel her son's presence just one more time, the mother completely let go of her fear of the unknown. Raising her trembling hands, she actively invited the invisible figure to join their clap game. On camera, the mother and daughter rhythmically clap empty air. Paired with the mother's muffled sobs, she tries so hard back. The entire room is filled with eerie yet tender vibes. Psychologists debate whether this is just traumatized child's coping mechanism or if a deceased loved one is at least sticking around in another. But for this mother, that probably doesn't even matter anymore. If you were in her shoes, reach out and touch cold air just for that tiny glimmer of hope.